I'm sorry. I forgot to book your room for our Christmas ski trip. The resort is completely full now. I read my daughter-in-law Melissa's text message twice. I was 66, widowed for 5 years, and sitting in my living room next to my fully packed winter suitcase. I opened our family group chat. My son Daniel had just uploaded a photo. 6 designer winter coats and matching snow boots lined their hallway. Everyone had a designated spot. Even their golden retriever had a customized travel carrier. Only my name was missing. Before I continue, let me know in the comments. Have you subscribed to the channel or not? Tell me, what time is it where you are right now? Where are you watching from? And what's the weather like there? Does it match your mood today? I'm curious to see how far this story travels. For 3 years, my presence in their lives had slowly been reduced to a free babysitter and a silent credit card. Last Thanksgiving, I cooked the entire meal while they entertained friends, only to be squeezed into the very edge of the table. A new text popped up on my screen. "We'll bring you back a mug or something," Melissa added with a brightly smiling emoji. I felt absolutely no urge to call and argue. I knew Daniel would just avoid the conflict anyway. I didn't want to beg for a space that should have been mine. I typed a simple 2-word reply. That happens. Then I walked into my bedroom, unpacked my heavy winter gear, and pulled out my spring clothes instead. I made 2 phone calls and secured a long-term rental on the coast. They thought they had just excluded me from one vacation. They had no idea they had just handed me the key to my own freedom. I didn't storm out in a dramatic fit of rage. I spent the next 3 days quietly dismantling the invisible threads that tied my daily routine to their constant convenience. First, I visited the bank. For years, I had kept a joint checking account open for Daniel's emergencies, which had recently evolved into covering Melissa's premium grocery deliveries and auto-renewing subscriptions. I sat across from the teller, withdrew my funds, closed the account permanently, and moved the money to a private bank. Next, I set up mail forwarding to my new 6-month rental on the Florida Gulf Coast. On the morning they left for their ski trip, I wrote a brief email to Daniel. I am taking an extended trip to focus on myself. I am perfectly safe. I will not be reachable by phone. Have a good time in the snow. I didn't leave a forwarding address. I took my old smartphone, the one constantly buzzing with their demands, plugged it into a charger in my home office, and left it there. Taking only a new, prepaid phone, I got into my car and drove south. As the snow-covered pine trees gave way to clear highways, I gripped the steering wheel, waiting for maternal guilt to hit me. It never came. I turned up the radio, feeling incredibly light, wondering how long it would take them to notice I was truly gone. I settled into my Florida rental with surprising ease. The condo smelled like sea salt and lemon cleaner, a sharp contrast to the stuffy, quiet halls of my empty house up north. My mornings, which used to begin with frantic texts from Melissa asking if I could drop everything to watch her dog or pick up her dry cleaning, now started with black coffee on a small balcony facing the ocean. I established a brand new routine. I walked the beach every morning at sunrise, read the thick historical biographies I had ignored for a decade, and took up watercolor painting on the weekends. I did not vanish from the world. I merely vanished from theirs. Back in my home office, my old phone sat quietly gathering notifications. Before leaving, I had linked the voicemail to a secure cloud service so I could check it occasionally from my laptop. I did this strictly to ensure there were no actual medical emergencies regarding my son. The progression of their messages over the first few weeks was absolutely fascinating to observe. During the first week, Daniel left a voicemail sounding mildly irritated rather than concerned. "Mom, Melissa says the Netflix and Amazon accounts aren't working. It keeps asking for a new credit card. Call me back so we can fix it." By week 2, the irritation shifted into genuine confusion. "Mom," the neighbors called and said, "Your car is gone and the house is totally dark. Where are you?" This isn't a funny joke. By the end of the first month, Melissa had taken over the communication. Her voice was sharp, laced with the exact kind of entitlement I had tolerated for far too long. "Patricia, it is incredibly selfish of you to just disappear like this without consulting us. Daniel is stressed out. You need to call us immediately and let us know what your problem is." I listened to the recordings while watching white seagulls dive into the crashing waves. I didn't reply to a single one. Their panic was not born out of missing my presence or my personality. It was born out of missing my utility. I had stopped functioning as their invisible safety net, and the sudden freefall was making them highly uncomfortable. I realized that I had spent years claiming I didn't mind helping out. But there is a profound difference between freely offering help and being stripped of your basic dignity. My silence wasn't a weapon, it was a boundary. In late February, a small package arrived at my Florida P.O. box. It had been forwarded from my old residential address. Inside a crumpled, cheap padded envelope was a thin, generic fleece scarf featuring the embroidered logo of the luxury ski resort they had visited. A small, hastily handwritten note from Melissa fluttered out onto my kitchen counter. "We had a great time. Save this for you. Hope you're done with whatever this weird phase is and come back soon." There was no apology for the missed room. There was no inquiry about my physical or mental well-being. The scarf was a blatant afterthought, a cheap souvenir bought at a lobby gift shop to lazily patch over a gaping hole of disrespect. The old Patricia would have kept the scarf. The old Patricia would have folded it neatly in a dresser drawer, desperately convincing herself that they cared just enough to buy her something, anything, from their trip. The new Patricia picked up the scarf, walked down the street to the local community shelter, and dropped it into the clothing donation bin without a second thought. That afternoon, I logged onto my laptop and began a thorough audit of my own life. I realized that my late husband, Thomas, had always handled the long-term family investments. After he passed, I had simply let things run on autopilot out of grief and exhaustion. Daniel had slowly assumed control over several family assets, steering conversations away whenever I asked about our shared accounts. I hired a local independent financial advisor in Florida to review my entire portfolio. We spent 3 weeks untangling the mess. I formally revoked Daniel's access to my main investment accounts, removed him as a secondary authorized user on my primary credit cards, and updated my estate planning to ensure my assets were locked tightly under my sole control. I did not do this out of spite. I did it because I finally understood that financial access is a privilege, not a right. Every form I signed felt like closing a window that had been letting in a freezing draft for years. By my 5th month in Florida, my life had completely transformed. I stopped waiting for the other shoe to drop. I joined a local historical society, volunteering 3 days a week to archive old municipal records. The work required intense focus and precision, utilizing skills I hadn't used since my early days as a corporate bookkeeper. The people I met in the society didn't know me as a grieving widow or an overbearing mother. They knew me as Patricia, the sharp-eyed woman who could decipher century-old handwriting and organize a chaotic filing system like a seasoned professional. I was respected. When I spoke, people actually listened to my ideas. Meanwhile, the messages in my cloud archive grew less frequent, but increasingly revealing. Daniel left a long, rambling voicemail in late April. "Mom, the property tax bill for the family lake cabin came to my house by mistake. I went to pay it from the joint account, but the bank said the account is closed. Call me so we can sort this out. I can't cover this bill right now." He didn't ask how I was doing. He only asked about the money. Melissa sent a direct email a few weeks later. Patricia, Daniel's birthday is next week. We're doing a big dinner at that premium steakhouse he likes. Let me know if you're transferring money for the bill like you did last year, since you obviously won't be here to celebrate. I smiled, deleted the email without responding, and went back to tending the small potted tomatoes growing on my balcony. Every ignored message was another sturdy brick in the wall I was building between my newfound peace and their endless chaos. I learned how to say no by simply saying nothing at all. The initial discomfort of ignoring my only son faded entirely, replaced by a solid, undeniable confidence. If my value to them existed only when my wallet was open, then it wasn't value. It was convenience. I was building a life where I was essential to myself. Summer arrived, bringing heavy, warm humidity to the coast. I spent a quiet afternoon indoors with the air conditioning running, organizing a plastic storage bin of old documents I had brought with me from the northern house. At the very bottom of the bin, tucked beneath old tax returns and Thomas's medical files, I found a heavy black envelope embossed with a silver pine tree logo. I pulled it out and opened the thick flap. Inside was the official founding membership certificate for the exact ski resort Daniel and Melissa visited every single Christmas. Thomas had purchased the lifetime membership almost 15 years ago, back when the resort was newly developed and seeking early investors. After he passed, I had put the paperwork away, completely forgetting the mechanical details of the account. Daniel and Melissa had taken over the annual booking, speaking to their friends as though the lavish trips were their own generous, self-funded tradition. I carefully unfolded the crisp certificate and adjusted my glasses. My eyes scanned the fine print at the bottom of the page. Thomas had not put the membership in a generalized family trust. He had named himself and me as the sole primary owners. Upon his passing, full legal ownership transferred exclusively to me. I found a secondary piece of paper inside the envelope, a welcome letter containing a legacy booking pin. The letter explained that the owner could assign an authorized coordinator to make reservations over the telephone. Years ago, while drowning in the heavy grief of losing my husband, I had blindly handed that pin to Melissa so she could handle the stressful vacation planning. She had been using it ever since, because the founding membership included a clause for 0 annual dues for the first 20 years. Melissa never had to pay an actual ownership fee. She only paid out of pocket for their food, ski lift tickets, and room incidentals. She had simply assumed the membership was a permanent fixture that belonged to her. I stared at the black envelope for a long time, remembering the exact wording of Melissa's text. The resort is completely full now. I booted up my laptop. I navigated to the resort's official website and located the owner portal login page. I clicked the button for a secure password reset using the legal documents, my identification, and my personal email to bypass the old security questions Thomas had set up. Within 10 minutes, I was successfully logged into the account. The dashboard on my screen displayed a decade of reservations, guest lists, room upgrades, and account activity. I clicked on the detailed log for the previous Christmas. My name had not been casually forgotten. It had been deliberately erased. The digital paper trail was undeniable and brutally clear. In September, a reservation had been made for 8 people, including me. A standard room was assigned firmly under my name. Then I scrolled down to December 12th, exactly 9 days before the trip, and exactly 2 hours before Melissa had sent me that dismissive text message. At 1:14 p.m., Melissa had logged into the concierge system using the coordinator pin. At 1:16 p.m., she had manually canceled my room reservation. At 1:19 p.m., she had rebooked the exact same room under the name Ashley Morgan, her younger sister. There was no booking error. There was no lack of space. Melissa had looked at the complete guest list, decided her sister was a higher priority, and quietly removed me. Then she had lied directly to my face, blaming the resort's capacity, assuming I was too passive and ignorant of the system to ever verify her story. A cold, quiet anger settled deep in my chest. I did not call her to scream. I did not demand an immediate apology. Instead, I navigated straight to the account security settings. With 3 swift clicks, I removed Melissa's name from the authorized coordinator list. I deleted the legacy booking pin entirely. I updated the overarching security settings to owner-controlled access, explicitly checking the box that dictated no guest could use the founding member privileges, secure priority rooms, or receive the heavy discounts without my direct written approval. The system generated an automated confirmation email. Primary member Patricia has restricted all third-party access. I closed the laptop, walked into my small kitchen, and poured myself a tall glass of iced tea. I had planted the seed. Now I just had to wait for winter. By November, I had officially signed a lease for another full year in Florida. I had absolutely no intention of returning to the cold weather, nor to the large house filled with ghosts and expectations. I was busy organizing a massive charity gala for the Historical Society. My days were filled with genuine purpose and real connections. On the Tuesday before Thanksgiving, my old cloud-based phone line suddenly lit up like a Christmas tree. I opened the application on my computer. A notification flashed in bright red. 1 missed call from Melissa. 2 minutes later, 1 missed call from Daniel. Over the next 4 hours, the numbers climbed steadily. 10 calls, 20 calls, 45 calls. By evening, the counter hit 72 missed calls. For the first time in an entire year, I was the most important person in their lives. They didn't remember me when my birthday passed in August. They didn't remember me when Mother's Day came and went. They remembered me when a reservation agent at a luxury resort firmly told them no. I clicked on the voicemails, pouring a glass of red wine before hitting play. Melissa's first message was breathless, arrogant, and annoyed. "Patricia, call the resort immediately. There is a glitch in the system, and they won't let me use the PIN. They're saying my access is revoked. Fix it." Her fourth message was entirely panicked. "Patricia, please pick up. I already booked the non-refundable flights for my whole family and my parents. The agent said you restricted the account. We need the rooms." Daniel's voice appeared on the 12th message, sounding incredibly strained. "Mom, what is going on?" "Melissa is crying. Did you change the account settings? We need that member discount. The public rate is $22,000 for the week. Call me back right now." I watched the audio waves bounce across the screen. They were not mourning a fractured family. They were panicking over a lost financial benefit. I opened my email and sent one short, factual reply to Daniel. "I am the sole owner of the account. I updated the security settings to reflect that. I will not be authorizing any third-party guests this year." 2 weeks later, I flew back to my hometown to meet with a real estate agent about listing my house. Word got around, and Daniel practically begged for a brief meeting. I agreed to meet him and Melissa at a busy public coffee shop, a strategic choice so they couldn't cause a loud scene or corner me in a private space. When I sat down, Melissa looked frantic. Daniel looked desperate. "Mom," Daniel started immediately, "you have to undo this restriction. We stand to lose nearly $9,000 in non-refundable flights. You're punishing the whole family over a simple misunderstanding." "There is no misunderstanding," I said calmly. Melissa leaned forward, her voice defensive. "I apologized for forgetting your room, Patricia. It was a mistake. Locking us out of our own family account is incredibly vindictive. I reached into my tote bag, pulled out the printed certified activity log from the resort, and slid it across the table. "You didn't forget," I said. Daniel frowned and picked up the paper. I watched his face shift from confusion to absolute shock as his eyes scanned the highlighted lines. "At 1:16 p.m. you manually canceled my reservation," I pointed out, my voice perfectly steady. "At 1:19 p.m. you gave the exact same room to your sister. 2 hours later you texted me that the resort was full." Melissa's face drained of color. She stared at the table, speechless. Daniel turned to his wife. "You told me the hotel bumped her because of a pipe leak." "I was trying to avoid drama," Melissa replied. Then she snapped, her mask completely slipping. "My sister needed a break." I looked directly at Daniel. She traded my place for someone she valued more, and she lied because it was convenient. Daniel rubbed his face with both hands, looking completely defeated. "Mom, I didn't know." "I know you didn't, Daniel. But you also didn't ask. You stood by while she treated me like a burden for years," I replied, folding my hands on the table. "The membership belongs to me. I am not granting access. You will have to pay the $22,000 public rate or cancel your trip." Melissa looked furious, realizing her control was gone. "You're tearing this family apart over a hotel room." "No," I said, standing up and grabbing my purse. "The family broke when you decided I was disposable. I'm just changing the locks." I walked out of the coffee shop, leaving them to argue over the printed log. I didn't look back. Later that month, I finalized the sale of my house. I heard through the grapevine that Daniel and Melissa had to cancel their lavish vacation, eating the massive cost of the flights. The fallout fundamentally shifted their marriage. Daniel froze their joint vacation funds after finally seeing his wife's entitlement. I spent Christmas Day on a warm beach in Florida. My friends from the Historical Society hosted a beautiful potluck dinner on a patio strung with bright lights. There were no designer outfits or curated photos for social media. But as I looked around the table, I realized something profound. Every single person there actually wanted me to be there. I wasn't a free babysitter. I wasn't an open wallet. I was just Patricia. Before going to bed, I checked my phone. 0 missed calls. The silence wasn't lonely anymore. It was the sound of my own peace, secured by a boundary I would never lower again.